Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we are back on the update 1.77 second dev server and we're having a look at the new top tier French jet. This is the M.D.452 2C, or the Mystere IIC pre-production, which is probably the one that people will know it by. What you get out of this plane is something very interesting. It is after the Barougeon at 8.0 and it sits at 9.0. Now the Mystere 2 was the first plane in, I believe, Europe, which was able to hit max speed. So this isn't the one which can actually do that. This is the pre-production version of it. What you will find on it, it has access to two 30mm DEFers, which are mounted in the middle of the fuselage, or at least, you know, they're mounted in the fuselage under the pilot, and then the whole of the wings are made out of fuel tanks on the side and back here. And then, of course, you have the engine in the center, which, let's just say, is quite a powerful beast. The max speed of this thing, being 1,044 kilometers an hour, is nothing to sniff at, and also on top of it, it does have some armor. So 13.5mm steel plates, and then the bulletproof glass added 40mm. If we look at the modifications that this beast does have, the main ones to look at is the fact that it gets access to secondary weapons. It is obviously in the attacker line of the tree, so that would make sense. You get two 500s, two 1000s, and then some snebs, 38 Type 23 rockets. These are not very large rockets, but they penetrate a very high amount, meaning that in ground forces, this machine will be used at the higher brackets, because it can fight, and it also can... I'll just change that, sorry about that. Let's just go in here so we don't hear that happen. What you get out of this machine is some very nice facts that you can fight alongside fighters, but at the same time be able to take out ground forces at the same time. Now, carrying these rockets, as you may see, loses you about 350 kilometers an hour and adds a hell of a lot of baggage to the rate of climb. Same with the bombs if you add them, and same with the 500s, 186 for these. So if you want to go full fighter mode, it is probably best not to take the secondary armaments. No skins on it, so you're just left with the silver paint style of the French, which is very nice. But overall, what we're getting out of this machine is a very good fighter, which is incredibly quick, but also has the capabilities to actually be useful in ground forces, which is something that you don't always get. I'm not sure that's a fair comparison, HE162, so let's find a better one. But at 9.0, it means that you have to go up against the best, and the best being stuff like the Canadair Sabre, and stuff like that. Let's just stick it up against this. We'll do 10 for 10, and then we'll just get onto it. There we go. So yeah, the 30mm DEFers, they are incredibly good cannons, I suppose you'd call them. They're present on the Hunter F1, they're also present on the Votor 2B, I believe, the second Votor. And basically what you get out of them is some incredibly high damage and high burst mass over a very small amount of time. And so, because of that, it means you can set up kills very well in something like this Mystere and be able to annihilate a target and zoom away. One of the interesting things about this, or at least it seems to be, is the fact that its acceleration compared to other jets may not be as good. So the issue that we may run into here against some other 9.0 aircraft, such as the Canadair Sabre, is that because the acceleration isn't the best, it may be annihilated by them at the start of battles. So the combat against stuff with high acceleration, such as most of the Sabres, probably won't be very fun in this thing. But against stuff like MiGs, it may actually work pretty well. For me personally, the biggest selling point to this is the fact that it does have an incredibly high top speed, but mainly it has the ordnance to back it up in a ground forces setting, meaning that the French actually have a 9.0 aircraft, which isn't the Votor, which can be able to fight ground and also air. It's going to be interesting to see the amount of people who are able to use the rockets to a very high level. taking out many vehicles as they go. Now obviously in test flights the crew that you have is not the same as what you have in the actual game, so you may see me overloading a lot here, but that's basically down to the fact that the crew is not the best. The actual turn of this machine and the roll rate is very nice, at least at medium speeds. At higher speeds it will obviously not have the same maneuverability, but it still should be fun to use. Let's just use the defers, try and take this guy out. And it seems like we're not doing a ton of damage, but then again, that's completely fine. Once again, as I've said in all of the reviews where I've talked about jets, my jet knowledge when it comes to War Thunder is definitely limited. So if you want to get a better view of how this is actually going to properly play out, it may be worth going to another person's channel, which is much more involved in the jets part of it. For me, I'm a propeller head. Jets is not foreign. I've played quite a lot of jets, but I just prefer propellers, meaning that my opinions on it may not be as truthful or correct as others in the space. So if we just shoot the defers here, I think we've missed quite a few. But let's just check the stall speed. The stall speed should be quite good on this machine. We're at 150. Yeah, it's alright. Like, compared to some other aircraft, it's not the best. For me, this is just going to be your run-of-the-mill 9.0 fighter. It's going to be fun to use, as long as you're able to aim the guns well, and it should be competitive at where it sits in the tree itself. Now, when rank 6 comes along, and we actually get the Mystere II, I don't think this thing will be the best plane or anything like that, but at least for now, it's definitely a competent 9.0 that you can run with basically your AMX-13 hot. Everything else in the French tree is not at 9.0 in tanks, so you're pretty limited if you want to actually run this thing, unfortunately. But if you do want to run the hots and you do want to go into 9.0, now you have a jet which can deal with the big lads, such as the MiG-17, the Canadair Sabre, and also the Sabres that are brought along by the Americans. Let's just go back up and swivel. The roll rate and the elevator are beautiful on this. They work really well, as long as you have good control of what goes on. The actual there we go. The flaps that it has, or the air brakes I should say, not that huge, but they seem to make a decent amount of difference. And then, of course, you have the combat flaps, which you're generally not going to use just because you're going to go at much higher speeds that you are going to be at. So let's just take out some of these. You should annihilate soft targets as well with the defers, which is nice. But yeah, the general control of this machine is lovely to feel, just like a lot of the 9.0 jets are. Is it going to be top dog? I don't think so. I still think we're going to be sat in the era where the Hunter is incredibly quick and its acceleration is good enough when fully upgraded to be able to be competent. The MiG-17 and of course the Canadair Sabre. Also the Japanese Sabre may be thrown into that mix because of its insane roll rate and turn. But this is definitely competitive. It is not something that is going to be left out in the whims and not going to be that good compared to other stuff. I think this is definitely going to be combat effective and pretty fun to fly. Now let's just check its straight line speed just to see where we're at, because obviously the stat card is going to be different to what this thing actually gets to. So if we just go in a straight line speed for a while, it should be alright. The engine itself hasn't blown up yet, which is always nice to see, because sometimes that obviously is the case, and this may be a good vehicle to put alongside the Vautour if you decide to play something like Enduring Confrontation at this BR, which is definitely something to think about. We're easily breezing up to 970. The acceleration is very, very, very well, not slow, but it's staying the same all the way through. There is no massive boost in acceleration at any point. What is also good is the fact that the cannons, being two of them, you have 150 rounds for each, which is always nice on a jet. 300 rounds means that you can stay in the air for quite a long time, and even though they're fast firing, you have the large burst mass, but on top of that, you have the fact that you're not going to have to go back to the airfield anytime soon to gain any ammunition. So we're pretty static at about 1,012 kilometers at 500 meters altitude, so that's pretty much the max speed of this in a straight line at lower altitudes. You can see the maneuverability is not as good with this thing when you're at these higher speeds, but it's nothing to scoff at, especially if you have a good crew. Once you have a good crew on this plane, you should be able to easily maneuver at higher speeds, and as you can see, the roll rate, even around 600, is quite nice. That's something I need to check, actually. Let's get this thing up to speed, and let's check the roll rate once again. Is it going to be faster than some 9.0 jets? Yeah. Is it going to be comparable speed to other 9.0 jets? Yeah, I think so. I don't think this is the new leader in the speed race. I think that is still in the park of some of the existing jets, but that doesn't mean that it isn't going to be quick. It should be quick enough to be able to not catch them, but keep up with them and all of that stuff. So let's go to about 1,000. Let's just check the roll rate. Yeah, the roll rate's still pretty good at around 1,000, as you can see. It's probably slightly better. So if you have a good crew, you should be okay. So now we test the whole speed. The max speed, it said, was 1,044, and it looks like it's struggling to get up to it, but we have surpassed it. So there we go. You can actually get past it. Looks like IAS at about 1,500 takes a bit of an unfortunate turn. But yeah, you can go 1,050 in this, so catching other jets, as long as they're not going faster than you in the first place, should be alright. But yeah, an interesting machine, and definitely a nice addition to the French top tier. It's unfortunate that there isn't a ton of ground forces you can put around it, but I'm sure with time there will be some for you. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.